Hey class, it is time for 1.7, our last standard for Unit 1. And so today we're going to learn some algebra, or really, we're going to review some algebra. So there's a couple things I want to make sure to remind you before we jump into examples, because that's mostly what this video is going to be, because the best way to do math is just to jump right into it. So you can see here a couple of things I want to make note of. First off, make sure you isolate the variable you're looking for. We're going to do algebra today with no numbers, all letters, because if you can do that, you can do literally any physics problem I can throw at you. Secondly, once you've isolated the variable, you want to get rid of coefficients on that variable. So we're going to do our best to work through this together. A couple last reminders as well. Addition and subtraction, they're opposites of each other. Multiplication, division, they're opposites of each other. You can only combine if they have like terms, and that what you do to one side, you have to do to the other. So I'm going to show you my organizational process and how I work through this stuff, and I'd recommend you follow something similar. If you are someone who scribbles like sideways or diagonally and doesn't follow the lines of their paper, I'm going to need you to start doing that today, because it's a way to keep yourself organized, and it helps communicate to me what's wrong, and it helps you better see what's happening. So let's go ahead and we're going to do some practice together. And like I said, I'm going to show you how I do it, and I'd recommend you pick up a way similar to this on how to do it. So first step, we have y equals xz. It asks me to solve for y. So I am trying to isolate x here. X is my goal. And so in order to do that, I have to get rid of z. I have to isolate the variable. And when two variables are next to each other, they're simply being multiplied. So that means I need to divide both sides by z. So I'm going to do my steps in red, and then I'll write out what I get. So I divide both sides by z. That means z cancels here. And my next line would simply be y over z is equal to x, which is exactly what I want. So that's the correct answer there. And when we get a correct answer, we're going to box it in just like that. Simple enough, right? I needed to get rid of multiplication, so I did a division. Let's go down to number 2 here. Number 2, f equals ma, and I'm solving for m. So again, I'm trying to get m all by itself here. And once again, I have multiplication. So what do I have to do? Well, I have to divide by a, and I have to do that to both sides. So my a's cancel, which would give me f divided by a is equal to m. And then I can plug numbers in and use my calculator from that point out. All right, let's do number 3. We've got 5 examples total here. Number 3, solve for x. So x is up here in the numerator on the right side. So what do I have to do? Well, I can't divide by t. I got to get rid of the t to get x by itself. So instead, I'm going to multiply both sides by t, because that's the opposite of division. Those guys cancel. And so then I'm left with t v is equal to x. And that's my answer. Oh, got to make sure we're boxing them in. There we go. All right, those are pretty simple. One step and we're done. And so now we're going to have to do some multi-step here on 4. Okay, so let's take our look here. Solve for VF. So I'm trying to solve for this guy right here. However, first thing is I got to get rid of the fraction. I got to get rid of, because I can't just get rid of, I got to get rid of the fraction first. So I got to get rid of t. It's being divided. So I'm going to multiply both sides by t. Well, that makes these two things cancel, which gives me a t. And notice I changed the order. That's okay. It's okay if you change the order. It's multiplication. Is equal to vf minus v naught. Quick note, these guys here are called subscripts. They're simply to denote that those are different v's for us here. Well, now I have to get v naught again by itself. So I'm going to highlight the one I'm trying to get by itself. So I have to get rid of v naught. Now it's being subtracted, which means if I add v naught to both sides, I'm going to add v naught and v naught. These cancel out, and I'm left with a t plus v naught is equal to vf. And there we go. I've isolated my variables. Again, they get a little bit more complicated. That's a two-stepper. And so we're going to have a three-step on this last one. And so let's work it slow, work it together on number 5. Remember, you're always welcome to go back and solve these again, and then go back through the video. So I'm trying to solve for A, which is sandwiched here between 2 and x. So let's go ahead and try and figure out what to do. Well, first, I need to isolate this section. So I need to get rid of this v naught. Well, v naught is being added to 2x, which means I need to subtract v naught squared from both sides. So that means this cancels out, and you are left with vf squared plus v naught squared equals 2ax. Well, remember, these are all sitting next to it, so it's essentially like there's a multiplication sign in between each of them. And so that means I can divide by 2 and x. I can divide by 2 and x. So I said 3-step, but it can be a 2-step if you combine those two together, which means this cancels with those, and you get left with vf squared plus v naught squared divided by 2x is all equal to a. And that's our algebra review. 5 review problems. You're going to have a worksheet alongside this that gives you more practice, of course. But algebra is something we should be able to do. We're simply reminding ourselves of these abilities. And you also should be able to do some trigonometry with sine, cosine, tangent, but we will talk about that when we do two variable vectors, two-dimensional vectors in our 3rd unit. So if you need help, reach out. I'm here for you if you need it. Thanks, guys.